In early 2023, I found myself needing a place to stay away from home. My father and I had been clashing more than usual, and I needed some space. That's when I discovered a cabin available for sublet. The original tenant had his own set of issues, forcing him to leave, and I jumped at the opportunity. For simplicity, I'll refer to him as my landlord. The cabin was nestled at the end of a lonely dirt road, surrounded by a few other similarly sized cabins, one of which appeared to be vacant as I never saw any signs of life there. The cabin itself was modest but functional, spread across 2 floors. The ground floor housed a small kitchen and a decent-sized living room, while the bedroom was upstairs, accessible by a quirky hatch door that lacked a lock. This place was ideal for my temporary need for solitude, with the rent paid month to month. I had been there for about a month already and had just paid for the next month, so I was fully settled in. Most days, I worked 12-hour shifts, leaving me completely drained by the time I got home. On one of those nights, I dragged myself back to the cabin, barely managing to make a late-night dinner consisting of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a protein shake. I shut the hatch door tightly before collapsing into bed, turning on the TV to unwind. As I was starting to doze off, I heard it, a voice, unmistakably coming from inside the cabin, asking, "Who's up there?" My heart skipped a beat. I quickly turned off the TV and strained to hear if the voice would speak again. The silence was deafening. I crawled to the small circular window above my bed to peek outside, but all I could see was the pitch-black night. I mustered the courage to whisper, "Who's there?" But there was no response, only an overwhelming stillness. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe it was my father coming to check on me, but I hadn't given him the address. Or perhaps it was just my imagination. I cautiously opened the hatch door and peered down the staircase, calling out my father's name. Nothing. I slowly descended, every step feeling heavier than the last, and flicked on the light in the living room. The room illuminated as expected, revealing nothing unusual. Yet, a gnawing fear kept me on edge. I turned on the outside light and scanned the area through the windows. There was no sign of anyone, yet the feeling of unease persisted. After a thorough search downstairs, I headed back up, shutting the hatch door more firmly than before. But just as I began to settle down, I heard it again, this time, loud, aggressive pounding on the hatch door. Whoever it was, they were trying to terrify me, and they were succeeding. Paralyzed with fear, I couldn't move. The worst part was knowing that the door had no lock. Whoever was down there could come up at any moment. I lay there, silent and still, for what felt like an eternity, before finally daring to move. I realized my phone was missing. In a panic, I searched the nightstand, but it wasn't there. It must have been left downstairs. I had no choice but to venture back down. With the TV's flickering light casting eerie shadows, I slowly crept down the stairs. Instead of turning on any lights, I decided to make a run for it, darting out the back door barefoot and sprinting to the nearest neighbor's house. I knew people lived there because their lights were on. I knocked frantically, hoping for help. But when I saw someone peering at me through the window, they just stared, emotionless, as if they'd been watching me for a while. A chill ran down my spine as I realized they weren't going to help. What if they were involved somehow? I hurried back to the cabin, locking the door behind me and turning on every light I could. I searched the downstairs for both an intruder and my phone, finally finding the latter in my car's center console. Exhausted and terrified, I returned to the cabin, climbing the stairs cautiously. When I reached the top, I froze. There, sitting on my bed, was a man, staring blankly at the TV. He slowly turned his head to look at me, and I screamed, bolting down the stairs and out of the house. I grabbed my phone and called 911 from the safety of my locked car. As I watched the house from my car, I saw a figure slip into the woods behind the cabin. The police arrived and searched the house, but the intruder was long gone. They advised me to find somewhere else to stay that night, so I swallowed my pride and went back to my dad's house. The next day, I returned to pack up my belongings, eager to leave that place behind. The landlord, surprisingly, agreed to refund some of my rent without asking too many questions, which only added to the unsettling feeling that something was very wrong. The creepy neighbor who didn't respond to my pleas for help, the landlord's sudden need to leave, and the man who invaded my space, they all seemed connected in some dark, inexplicable way. Even now, I can't shake the feeling that I narrowly escaped something far more sinister than I could ever comprehend.